Hello, this is Rob Lambert with AssetProtectionTraining.com. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about doing asset protection when you really need it but can't afford it. Unfortunately, that's an all too common situation many of my potential clients find themselves in. Out of any 10 people that come to you, only 2 out of 10 will really be able to afford the substantial costs to do really solid offshore protection. Well, I think I've come up with a way to cut your costs way down, and I want to share it with you. And of course, I'm going to be offering to make this possible for you. Let's get started. Fear. Fear is the reason people do asset protection. They're afraid of our politics. I don't need to go into any details here. I'm not going to do a long diatribe, but I'm not really comfortable that the United States is stable. I'm really not comfortable about Europe and Asia. Last time I was in Paris, I got in the middle of a riot. Things are tough, and political stability is a major issue. The United States is not necessarily the strongest, most stable country in the world. You possibly want to have money in other places. In 2014, we're going to be seeing real exchange control fears. There's already legislation on the books which stops your ability to transfer money abroad to a number of banks. And truly, a large number of the banks out there aren't compliant with the rules that require that they basically give the United States carte blanche access to their data when it comes to tax fraud and things like that. Another real good reason for asset protection is just the fear from a good old-fashioned civil attack. This can come from your family members, things like divorces, things like girlfriends, boyfriends, things like children getting drunk and driving their cars into the neighbors. Things like that are very serious, and that's about half the problem that people have. Another type of problem they have that comes from your closer people are business partners. Anytime you go into a partnership, you better have a solid agreement. And if you don't, you have a distinct possibility for litigation from the business partner. Anybody with a brain is afraid of the contingent fee litigators in the United States. We're the only country that turns out more than 100,000 lawyers a year and gives them the power to sue anybody they want. All they have to do is file a complaint, and we don't have enough jobs for them. So what are they doing? They're out there suing everybody. And then we have an aggressive Obama-driven governmental attack on many of the people in the United States. The IRS, the SEC, the FTC, the DEA, everybody's getting bigger in the federal government. Everybody's auditing more. Everybody's suing more. Everybody's under a microscope with the government. It's bad, and it's all the more reason that you need asset protection. The problem is that you maybe can't afford it. That's the problem. The problem is the cost. Affordable asset protection is mostly offered by scammers, crooks, Nevada corporate salesmen, people offering domestic asset protection trusts, which you should know are pure fantasy. They don't work. Solid asset protection costs money. It takes time. But there are several types of asset protection which are very effective and don't really require huge expertise to do correctly. And I'm going to share those with you because candidly, the problem that most people have is that they get caught up in the technology. They go to some, quote, guru who probably doesn't know what he's talking about half the time, and they get a complicated plan. It has all sorts of equity stripping and weird corporate mechanizations. Well, that's not necessary. All you need is the right technology at the right price. But again, first a word of warning. This is not the proper way to do asset protection. The proper way is for you to hire some guru, pay him $25,000, $30,000, do it right, involve your domestic estate planner, and involve your certified public accountant or whoever does your tax returns. And just the fact that I'm giving you tools to do this yourself doesn't mean that you don't need to involve your local attorney with any and all conveyances or decisions you make and particularly coordinating the asset protection with your estate plan. It doesn't cost very much, figure $400 or $500, but you're going to have to do that. Also, nobody at Asset Protection Training is practicing law or offering legal advice to you. I'm not a lawyer. I don't offer legal advice, but even the lawyers here don't want to offer legal advice. We're functioning as teachers. It's like you went to Stanford Law School and took a course, and that's what we're giving you. So don't start relying upon the information you get here to go out and plan your life and do it without proper advice. I'm showing you the tools. I'm giving you some techniques to get some affordable, proper advice, but I'm telling you, you need a local lawyer always, particularly when you make any transfers, and you need to involve your accountant, period. That's my word of warning, and don't come back to me claiming anything else. Okay, there's two problem areas: offshore protection and onshore protection. Offshore protection is what most people need. They simply need an offshore bank account that is completely safe from creditors. That is one of the things that we can provide at an affordable type of cost. It just takes a little bit of work, and we can do it relatively risk-free, and I'll explain to you why in a seminar I'm about to give. But we have onshore protection and we have offshore protection. Onshore protection merely takes your domestic assets and includes them in your asset protection plan. We'll talk about that in detail in the next few minutes. I'm going to show you the type of things I'm talking about. Offshore asset protection. Remember I said it broke into two segments? Offshore is one. The main goal is to establish a creditor protected offshore account to hold cash and other liquidity. In banks abroad, many banks will often function almost like Merrill Lynch or a stockbroker, and if they don't, you still want that. There are many investments available offshore that are not available to domestic people. Many of them are safer, but you can't do it in your own name. It's because the Internal Revenue Service and the U.S. government has sullied the waters so much that the institutions abroad simply don't want to do any business with U.S. people. We're just too big of a pain in the butt to do business with. So if we want to open an offshore account, the first step is to establish an APT. That's this purple and blue thing down here. I make it so it gets bright when I highlight it. But this is how I diagram APTs. It's just a bucket. Well, we need an APT. So how's the best way for me to save you money with that? Well, let's start with a free one. I've located some really fine trust companies, 2 so far, I'm working on more, that will provide you with an attorney-prepared, solid, state-of-the-art asset protection trust, prepared by a lawyer in their jurisdiction, certified by that lawyer to be solid, established, working, solid trusts enforceable in that jurisdiction. And that's a real good first step. And you'll normally pay, the lowest I see them is $8,000 or $9,000, and the typical prices are in the mid-20s. You're going to get one of those level trusts. You're going to have to give the trust company some information, and they're going to give it to you for free. What's in it for them? What's in it for them is you're going to be paying them $1,500 to $1,700 to $1,800 to $1,900, depending on which jurisdiction we go to, and the recording fees in those jurisdictions. You're going to be spending an annual fee with them. So they do a little bit of work up front. They draft a few documents for you, but they get a solid annuity and a relationship. It's a win-win for them. So they're willing to give you a trust. And I'm, twisted their arms, and they're going to do good trusts, and I'm going to make sure it works, or they're not going to get any more work from me. So the first step is to add an asset protection trust. That normally is all you need to take the assets off of your balance sheet. And remember, the first rule of asset protection is what you don't own can't be taken from you. And when you use that trust when you fund an asset protection trust, you take the assets off of your balance sheet and they cannot be taken from you. Although I assume most of you have read and listened to and watched the videos on the rules. Watch the first 2 again, because the second rule is no country in the world automatically enforces U.S. judgments. And that's why an offshore asset protection trust is the first place to start in almost every case. So we form an asset protection trust. Note the players. Settlor, that's you. Trust company, that's some offshore trust company, protector and beneficiary. Note, I have not made this a kinetic plan. kinetic plans where they have the U.S. Person, my client, my settlor client, who's almost always the protector and oftentimes the beneficiary. They will oftentimes be trustees or co-trustees along with an offshore trust company when you do a kinetic trust. That's not what this is. You're doing a non-kinetic trust. You're vulnerable to this trust company in yellow right here. Well, how do you avoid the vulnerability? Well, that's real simple. You add an offshore LLC. You see this little sort of pinky triangle? You form an offshore LLC, and if you look carefully, we will make you, that's you, this little red guy down here, you the manager of the offshore LLC. So you control the LLC. That's how we keep you in control of your money, even though you're not the trustee. If you didn't get that, listen to this video again. But this is how we keep you in control of your money. You're the sole manager of the offshore LLC. Your trust company does not have power over the offshore LLC. You're the sole signatory of the offshore LLC, and you use it to open offshore bank accounts. It's very, very, very common to do. And this is the second thing you might want, because to open almost any offshore bank account, you will need an offshore LLC, particularly bank accounts in Switzerland or countries based upon the Germanic system. They don't know about trusts. They don't like trusts very much, but they're very comfortable with LLCs. And I must tell you, I've become very enamored with Belizean LLCs. And 2 weeks ago, I got the new regulations. They just came out 2 weeks ago. And there's a provision, 37.7, in those laws that says that if anybody wants to go after money that you're holding in a Belizean LLC, and they want to go after it in Belize, they're going to have to post cash, not a bond, cash equal to 50% of the amount they're thinking of recovering. They're going to have to put cash with a judge, $100 bills, real money. It's a real big disincentive. It's what I call a poor man's asset protection trust. Even the offshore LLC alone is better than nothing. It's a real good start. And the typical prices of those are not too much, $1,500, $1,600. If we use Belize, that's what we can expect to have to pay. I haven't negotiated the prices yet. I'm in the process of chiseling away. But bottom line is that's my favorite LLC jurisdiction. It used to be Nevis. So we form an offshore LLC, and then the offshore LLC with you as the signatory goes and opens a bank account. What I will do is introduce you to people at the various banks that I suggest, and if we go to Belize, we'll use a Belizean bank, maybe Bank of Belize or Choice Bank. If we go to St. Lucia, we'll use Royal Caribbean Bank, or some other bank, or you might use the LLC to open a bank account in England or Switzerland or any place you want. You choose your own banks. You should never let anybody choose where you put your money, although I think you should always get a small bank account in the country in which your trust is located. Not a big bank account, a small bank account, so that if things go to pieces, you have a place you can move even millions of dollars for a few weeks or a few months if you have to. It's a good start. So step 3 is add an offshore bank account to your asset protection trust, and the asset protection trust bank account is opened through and on behalf of an offshore LLC it owns 100% of. The offshore LLC is a disregarded entity, and as you've all learned from the many videos here, the Asset Protection Trust is a pass-through grantor trust. There are no tax consequences negative to this other than you need to file the proper disclosure tax returns. They're not taxing you, they're just disclosing. Well, that solves the first problem. It gives you an offshore LLC that is off your balance sheet. This LLC can own bank accounts, and it can also own donut shops and other businesses. You could open up a construction company. You could open up almost anything you want offshore, and it would be protected in this type of structure. And look, we've done this structure for virtually nothing. All you've had to do is pay the filing fees and some small fees to the company performing the LLC, and you've gotten your asset protection trust for free. You're not really in too big, you're not out more than a couple $1,000s at this stage, and you've got the equivalent of a $40,000 plan. And you've also got the bank account. You can do the bank account yourself. I told you I would introduce you to the people. You can also hire your trust company to give you some assistance. They charge a few $100 for that. Normally not necessary, but usually helpful. That's step 3. Step 4. Well, see that little green thing over here in the left? This is a domestic family limited partnership, and this little lightning bolt separates the USA from offshore. Well, if we form a domestic family limited partnership right here, you can put domestic situs assets into that. It's not that it gives you that much greater protection. It does give you some, but you can't count on judges not to be rogues and do whatever they want. So they may ignore this structure. But if you add assets to the domestic family limited partnership, such as you open a Merrill Lynch account, that account is supposedly should be protected on the very day you open it. And I'll tell you what, if things go bad, you just move money upstream from your domestic family limited partnership upstream to your asset protection trust, which would then put it into this bank account here, maybe put it in yen. See the yen right there? You get to choose your investments. It's kind of nice. Turn off the volume there. Sorry, guys. Okay. This is the perfect asset protection plan. Simple and effective. It's not what you're going to get if you go to a real pro, spend 25, 35, 40 grand. You'll have something more complicated probably. But I'll tell you what, this is a really great start. And this is a point I want to make to all of you. You are better off doing something with the assistance of your local lawyer, maybe even $300, $400, $500 worth of assistance. You're better off doing something than doing nothing and just being vulnerable and a victim. You never ever have to be a victim again. And I want you all to stop being vulnerable to anybody. You don't have to do it if you choose not to. Okay, well, so if you do this, what do you get? You get an asset protection trust. You get the trust document for free as long as you pay their annual fee. You get an offshore LLC if you need it to open up your bank account. You get all of my training, and you'll get all the relationships if you want to open a domestic family limited partnership. I love Delaware. You'll hear all my preferences, and you'll have a complete access to my Rolodex. Everybody that I use is open to you. So what do you get again? I just put it down here. The Asset Protection Trust, you get the free lawyer-prepared Asset Protection Trust Agreement. What else do you get? You get the free lawyer-prepared offshore LLC agreement. What else do you get? You get the free lawyer-prepared family limited partnership agreement. You don't need this if you don't want to include your U.S. assets. This is all modular. You're going to need the Asset Protection Trust and the LLC to open an offshore bank account. You're going to need this family limited partnership to include your domestic assets with it. But that's pretty straightforward. So here is what you get. You get these 3 things: the lawyer-prepared trust, lawyer-prepared LLC, lawyer-prepared family limited partnership, complete access to my Rolodex, and I'm going to do 3 one-hour seminars on how to do this. I'm not going to function as your lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not going to function as an individual advisor. I'm going to give you generic, very helpful logistic advice on how to make this stuff happen, what the normal ways to do it are, and even if you hire a big fancy lawyer, this will help keep you from getting hosed. And you know, by the time we're done with 3 hours of training and then an hour of answering all your questions, you should have the tools necessary to do this. And what is the deal? Well, here it is. I just thought I'd write it down. If you use any of the trust companies I recommend, and you'll have plenty so far too, you will get a solid trust prepared by a licensed attorney for free. Same thing with the LLC and the FLP. If you need them and you pay the people that are your annual representatives, and we're talking hundreds, not thousands of dollars, and we're talking about standard fees that they've been charging for years, you will get the documentation for free. And we're talking real documentation. We're talking solid stuff, not garbage little forms. And in addition, I'll be providing 4 hours plus of great training. I promise you'll know what you're doing. I intend to charge $400 for the training, but the good part is the trust company, if you use them, will reimburse that charge. So you're going to get your training for free if you use one of the trust companies. that I'm going to refer you to. And again, they're doing it not because they're trying to make a lot of money the first year. They're trying to develop a relationship with you over the next 10 or 20 years. And candidly, guys, I think I can finally say we are the home of the free asset protection trust. Asset protection should be available for everybody, and maybe now it is. I do hope to have the honor to get to know you. Thank you very much. This is Rob.